But hello, everybody. Welcome back. Another week of our film discussion. We don't have a really name. I don't know the name. I don't do this much. Today we watched Matador's Mistress, which is a movie directed by Menno Meyjes and stars Adrian Brody and Penelope Cruz. So this movie, I think, for me, it's kind of boring, right? It's a bit bland, especially the first hour of it or so, and it doesn't really get too exciting. I wouldn't even say too exciting, just interesting, right near the end when they show kind of the bullfight and kind of like, spoiler alert, like, Menno Meyjes, who is the title character, is kind of accidental goring, right, from the bull, right? Is it due to a slip up or his mind being distracted? Maybe, but it kind of all culminates to that point. I think this scene kind of, this movie, there could have been so much more, but it's all surface level. It's all about the relationship between the two characters, but they really don't go into much detail about who they are. It's just really about their relationship, right? And then kind of how that relates to kind of the final scene. So I wish that they kind of went in depth more about who each of these characters were instead of just glossing over them, right? Because they kind of just say like, oh yeah, these two people are in love. How did they fall in love? What are the bumps in the relationship? And that's pretty much it, right? When they could have, I think, gone into more detail about, oh yeah, Menno Meyjes, like what does he, why is he so great of a bullfighter? What makes him great? Why do people love him? And they kind of detail, like, yeah, the philosophy all like, oh yeah, a bullfighter is someone who, is not afraid, or someone who loves death, right? And yeah, we kind of get a glimpse of it, right? But we don't really go into it, right? His mindset. I think we could have, and that would have made him more compelling. And the same thing with Lupe, right? What is her state? I mean, we know she comes from from a place of poverty at first, right? But then we seeing like what does she work as? What is she why does she fall in love with Menno Meyjes, right? What is she going through, right? And there could have been a lot about her past that we could have gone into. There's there are points of this movie. This is a biopic, right? So I think they kind of hit some points, but they always kind of gloss over, right? A big part of it is they kind of bring up a point where she's arrested for being a suspected communist or former communist in the past, right? And we show like, oh yeah, she was married before, but they kind of gloss over it because she kind of she ignores it. It's like, oh yeah, it's in the past and whatnot. And they could have gone into it like why did she marry before? Who did she marry before? Why did she leave him? Right? What makes her past relationship different from the relationship she is now in with Menno Meyjes? Right? Could have gone so much more, made a more compelling relationship. Why their bond is stronger, and then made it more tragic at the end, right? When they kind of separate. So it could have gone more deeper into these characters, but they don't. And I think that's kind of tragic because I mean this movie is short, but it kind of goes it's very fast paced. But because of that, you don't really feel too engaged or attached to the relationship at all. You just kind of watch it and say, okay, this is kind of like your regular romantic drama, but really with no too much drama, right? Because they try to have these bumps in the road, but it's all resolved pretty quickly. In the beginning, they kind of show them that there's a fight, right? But then you don't really see why they're fighting. I mean, you kind of do, but then everything is resolved. So then when you see them, kind of at the end, it's like, okay, what was the beginning about anyway? Why was this conflict? When in reality, you kind of show that they've already always loved each other. So it is kind of hard to kind of distinguish because expectations aren't really met from what they kind of introduced at the beginning of the movie, because you're expecting some kind of big thing to happen, but there's really no big thing, or anything that happened was resolved very, very quickly. Menno Meyjes kind of forgives Lupe for any transgression that he believes that she has committed. So, and I think the movie could have done a lot more in the drama, right? I mean, we talked about how the manager, he could have been utilized more to, show more in depth of how, be kind of more of a conflict of, holding Menno Meyjes back Trying
Yep.
to be a confrontation and becoming a conflict for drama between him and Lupe. So, I think
Yeah.
just a lot of things are almost missed opportunities in the writing. And then in terms of the whole, I think it really is. I think a lot of thought of the story itself. Just the way it was structured. It does go back and forth between past and present, and you two kind of follow along, especially with how people are, they're they look and costume change, right? But then it just sometimes you try to connect back, like, oh, are we back in the present? And when's the point when they kind of have the disconnect between the two, which kind of happens, but again, it resolves very quickly. I think the acting from both, like the main leads were okay. Adrian Brody, good actor, but sometimes I feel like, in this movie, there's really some scenes where he just seems a bit flat. I mean, he's known for,
Mm.
as you said, Patrick. I know you're a big fan. Like, he's an actor who plays the troubled soul, and yeah, this is probably the role, right? This is a guy who is definitely has in troubled place, especially at the start. But there are times when I think especially when he's maybe angry or supposed to be passionate in love. At least for me, it doesn't really convey well, and maybe that's more of the direction, right? Because we've
Hmm.
seen his range before, so sometimes I feel like it's not that. Sometimes at points it's not as engaging. And then Penelope Cruz, I think she's pretty great. I mean, she still plays someone who's passionate in love or fiery. But again, I think sometimes just playing off Adrian Brody, it's more of maybe on Brody and not on Cruz. I think I do enjoy her performance a bit more in this film. So, but yeah, that's all my remarks. How about you?
Yes, sir. Yeah, I agree with a lot of what you say. I will say that I think the one word that I will use to describe this film is lackluster.
Lackluster.
It is fortunately not too long, so it did not overstay its welcome. However, the main plot, which is basically the relationship between Manolete and Lupe, it just felt flat. It's sort of like, oh yeah, I've been there, done that, seen
Yeah.
this kind of story before. I think they did try the best, the
Mm-hmm.
director, with trying to make it compelling in the sense of um, paying attention to certain details,
Mm-hmm.
trying to tell it in a non-linear fashion. Like, I think there were things, techniques that they used to try to make it more compelling, but like there's only so much glitter you can put on something that's not doesn't look good in the beginning to make to try to like correct it, but it just didn't work.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I think the reason why he felt flat was because there was just not a lot of stakes. Like, there wasn't a lot of
Mm-hmm.
drama to begin with, and I think you mentioned adding parts where they could have expanded the drama part, like you know, I'm going more in depth about Lupe's communist background, um, having more of the conflict between the manager and Manoleta and Lupe, and even just adding the family,
Yeah.
making the family more involved. I think in general, because there was just a couple of scenes where like the family probably did not like Lupe, or like the family was really much wanting the money, just money in general from Manoleta, and that could have been the main reason why he wanted to continue, like
Mm-hmm.
why he did not want to retire, even though he could have lived a very happy, satisfying remainder of his life with Lupe. But yeah, I just yeah, there was just not enough drama. I still very much like Adrian Brody, still a huge fan. I think he acted well. Um, I just think it's funny that he was probably the only character in the film that did not have
Oh.
an accent. Like, he literally just spoke like basic English,
Yeah.
or like American accent English. And I just thought that was very amusing because he like did not sound Spanish, nor did he look Spanish. So, um, yeah. And Penelope Cruz, yeah, I mean, she did I think she did a good job.
Mm-hmm.
I think she did as well as as well as the script allowed her to do.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah.
um, yeah, overall, just like it's a love tragedy film
Yeah.
about a historical figure, a real life bullfighter, who unfortunately passed away and prematurely.
Yeah.
And yeah, that love story was just yeah. I mean, I love you at first sight. Oh, like now I have something to live for. It's disrupting my bullfighting. Oh wait, are you? But like the girl's like, okay, I don't want to be attached. Like I don't want to be just your wife or whatever.
Yeah.
And then he becomes sad, and then she presumably leaves, and then he like. Anyway, tragic love, very very common trope tragic love story.
Yeah. Yep.
So yeah, I think that's sort of it. For my take.
Okay.
What was your rating, Mr. Austin?
My rating. I would probably say this movie is probably just a 5. It's like almost just like an average.
It exists.
Yeah, the movie exists, and it's not as really compelling. It's there, right? I can still watch. I mean, the dialogue is not something that I can't stand. Right? I at least I can sit there and watch it and not cringe. Right? So dialogue is there. I just think the way the story was structured could have been a lot, but they could have gone into a lot better. It's just a very basic film almost that they were shot it. There's relationships, and there's characters that are there, but they could have gone on some more. The subject matter, so the setting itself is interesting. Bullfighting, right? They show some scenes there, and I kind of want them to go more into that, but it's fine that they don't. But the movie exists. And it's not like a terrible movie because there's a plot, right? Just follows his relationship, right? How it goes and connecting that with his last bullfight. So it's all right in that sense. But I think it definitely could have been improved. Try to get more characterization, more detailed about who they are, and that would have I think it elevated a lot more. So it's just a very almost just average movie that I could sit through, but it is a bit boring, especially in the beginning, right? Because again, I don't think it brings you anything too new. It's just something that we've already seen before, right?
Yeah.
So that's why. And then would I recommend it? Probably not too much. I would just say like, yeah, it's a film, and it's another Adrian Brody film, and it's another film that you can see a different, I guess, culture, right? I really would have liked to see more about the bullfighting and have more explanation about it because something I don't know too much. So if they could have gone into more, I think that would have been exciting. I don't know if I would actually recommend it to anybody really because I just like, I mean, if you're maybe on a plane, you could watch it, but even then, there's probably something interesting to pass the time, right? Because it is relatively short too. So
yeah.
How about you? You're waiting.
I'd give it. I'd give it a 4.
A 4.
Yes. I think the reason why it's below average slightly is because one, the story was been there, done that, and it was very not compelling. I will say that there are parts that do redeem it for sure, like Adrian Brody, for instance. Just seeing him, yes, great. And I did find that it was I did appreciate the attempt they made to paint it to the details, trying to make it artistic in some sense. But yeah, it just if your main story falls flat, like those attempts just they don't end up uplifting it too much.
Right.
I just also think it was a bit poetic that the thing that he Lupe was, which originally he was Manolete was scared of death, but then he found reason to live for it in the form of Lupe.
Yeah.
And then that ironically causes his death when he finds something to live for.
Yeah.
So I just thought that was a bit poetic and ironic in some sense.
It was. They could have gone, I think, a little bit more into that.
The idea was there.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah. And would I recommend it? Yeah, probably not. I would not recommend it. There are way better Adrian Brody films out there if you're a fan of Adrian Brody. For instance, The Pianist.
Another plug.
I would have to say, if you have not seen The Pianist, if you're a fan of Brody, you have not seen The Pianist. I mean, just in general, if you're looking for a historical drama film, that's a beautiful film. I would highly recommend that. I just love how I'm talking about something else. But yes. Anyway, I think that's it for our discussion for today.
Yeah.
But yeah, until next week.
Until next week. Yep.
Alrighty. That's it for today, folks.
We'll see everyone later.
Bye-bye.
Bye.